Let's see. You guys can hear me, right? Is my mic on?
Yep. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, can I hear both of you real quick?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
One more time, Brian.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Gotcha.
7, 8, 9.
Javier.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Can you do one more time, please?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Sound pensive somehow. All right.
It's on pensive?
I said you sound pensive somehow. All right, let's see here. So we are live. And, all right, starting the commercial. If you guys are good.
Yeah, I'm sending you a thank, too.
Are you sending it to the email or to
the
my
email?
phone?
To the
okay,
email.
thanks. Appreciate it.
Support for Wrong About Everything comes from Minnesota's credit unions. Credit unions are locally based, member-owned financial cooperatives that return earnings to members through higher savings rates, lower loan rates, and reduced fees. Visit mncun.org for more information.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Wrong About Everything podcast. I am GOP strategist and Twin City Sugar, Brian McDaniel.
I am Democratic strategist and the Puerto Rican Heat. And I'm wondering, where is everyone? Javier Murillo.
And we are
Wrong About
Everything.
It's
The
just
Wrong
us.
About Everything podcast, the way it was originally intended.
Just two dudes.
Before all them other people came in and did whatever it is they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 11 years?
11 years.
So 11 years ago, when Javier, because Javier did come up with the concept for this, when he came up with this, this is what he envisioned at first, and I think having 2 and 2 is good. I don't think we would have. I don't think just the two of us would have made it this long. I don't know if we're going to make it through this show.
True. Yeah. But yeah, no, it wouldn't have been as interesting.
No, definitely not. But yeah, so Amy and Mike and Rochelle and Allison are off doing other things. So it's just the two of us, and we're very happy to be here with you. Hopefully, you are watching us. Well, actually, before I get to that, we're in the Minnesota Credit Union Network studios, deep within the recesses of MBC Studios here in Northeast Minneapolis. We got Gabe in the other room, making sure that you can hear us and see us, and hopefully you're hearing us and seeing us on our YouTube channel. We want as many likes and subscriptions there.
Please like and subscribe. Is what you're supposed to say.
And subscribe and send it to your friends, because that is the best way to enjoy the Wrong About Everything podcast for sure. We also want to thank our good friends at Bradshaw and Bryant. Bradshaw and Bryant, their entire team of attorneys and staff is dedicated to providing the legal advice you need, combined with the service and personal attention you deserve. If you have questions about how they can assist you with a personal injury, wrongful death, or criminal defense matter, do not hesitate to contact them. Consultations are free. Please contact them at 800-770-7008 or at minnesotapersonalinjury.com.
So,
how'd things go with the moth?
Yeah, moth last week. Oh, it was super fun. Again, we had like 30. I think the total was close to 30 or some storytellers, and they named them. And
how many get to do it each time?
10. And a few really cool things happened. One is that almost everyone was a new storyteller, and they were really good stories.
Yeah.
Like it was just a really, really good night. Yeah. So it's like favorite thing I'd do.
Yeah. No, and I've gotten to see Javier do it, and I think we've talked about it that if you want to see Happy Javier, go to the Moth, because he is a completely different person.
You make me feel like a curmudgeon when you say
You know why? Because you are.
I am not a curmudgeon. What's your opinion over there, Gabe?
I was just going to ask if you film them or record them or whatever when you do them.
They record them, but they're proprietary to the Moth because they record them for the radio hour. for use, and they have. But now it used to be you could only hear your recording if they happen to pick you for the radio, and that's a very small subset of the people who participate in the live shows. But now you can request your recording.
Okay.
So
have you ever been featured on the radio?
3 times.
No way, really?
Yes, I've been on actually twice on the national on the Moth Radio Hour that's on NPR, and then once on the Moth Radio Hour podcast, which has like 1 million downloads. But yeah,
Maybe this is a horror thing from me and Brian being stand-up comics, but like, can you imagine having one great story that's that good and then just not telling it again? Like, I mean, are you truly done with them when you're done?
So they do these main stage shows that are kind of a longer form storytelling, like 10 to 12 minutes. And that was the first story I ever told. And then I went to Charleston, South Carolina last year, and there's a story I told there. If they put it on the air, then they retire the story, meaning they don't tour with it anymore. Because those long form storytelling shows, they tour with them. So like nothing that's been on the air can you tell again. But otherwise, I mean, like when I perform, I definitely.
Yeah, because you have one man shows that travel.
Yeah.
That's all just long form stories, or for the most part long form.
Well, and those shows came about from basically like 5 minutes, doing a bunch of Moth 5-minute stories that I just strung together as shows. Yeah, I miss doing that. It's funny. Have you been performing?
I mean, here and there. Now that once we're done with session, we're still in session, which we'll get to later. But once we're done with session, I'll have more time to kind of like do that and work on some new stuff. But I have some stuff planned for later in the summer, but nothing, not the way I did kind of pre-pandemic.
Yeah. No, I like it's been like, other than the Moth, that's the like when I host, I was like the last week I was like reminded like, oh, I need to get on, I need to do it on stage more, because I started to doubt.
Yeah, well, for like the stand up, I've never regretted doing it.
Right.
But there is sometimes like dread with having, especially open mics, going to open mics.
That's hard.
That's fun for a while.
Yeah.
And then it's just the same people. You see the same people every week telling the same jokes. And an open mic is where you're supposed to work on stuff.
Right.
So most of the time you're there, even if a joke becomes funny eventually,
right.
It's not funny, and you have to hear it 10 times in 2 weeks from other people and whatnot. And
so you've only invited me to open mics?
No, you have been, because I hosted the open mic at St. Paul Brewing. I know that you came to that once. Yeah, but you've never been to like a show? Not at Mall of America or anything?
Not, I mean, ones that were like contests. So not yeah.
Okay.
But not. I'm shows.
Okay. I won in Sauk Rapids in August.
Yeah.
So see how that goes. All right. Well, hey, we got some unpleasant
crappy
stuff this week. So, last week we talked about the two Israeli, or the two people that were gunned down that worked at the embassy in D.C., and that has been followed up by an Egyptian national planning a firebombing of Jewish people in Colorado. He'd been planning it for a year, allegedly. An Egyptian national charged with tossing gasoline bombs at a pro-Israeli rally in Boulder, Colorado, injuring a dozen people, one of which was an 88-year-old European-born Jew who survived the Holocaust. His name was Mohammed Sabri Soliman. He was 45. He had stayed longer than his work visa and his student visa. And he'd been planning this a year, but he wanted to wait until his
tourist visa.
But he wanted to wait until his daughter had graduated high school, which was very nice of him, I guess.
Which is like what a weirdly sitcom-y kind of detail to to like planning murder.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we don't know what his mental state is. I'm sure that it is not good, but there is no question that this was a hate crime, and he has been charged as such, because when he did it, he was yelling, "Kill all Zionist people," and he had 16 essentially Molotov cocktails ready to go. So this is something where he was caught, much like the guy out in D.C. that we talked about last week, seems to be very proud of this, and this is something to keep an eye on, everybody. I mean, there are very, very, very strong opinions on what's going on in Gaza, and but this is something. If there is a radical element that feels emboldened to not try to kill people, but kill people, that is something that is extremely scary. Especially, this was a peaceful rally where people were trying to keep awareness of the hostages that Hamas still has. So all the right people have said all the right things about condemning this, but it does not feel like this is gripping the national zeitgeist like things did with the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting and some of the other ones. And I mean, I find that depressing. And this is 2 in 2 weeks, and I'll feel better if there's not 3 in 3 weeks. But it's kind of hard to bank on that.
Yeah, I've noticed something about myself, that part of it is like really kind of avoiding X, formerly Twitter, just because it's such a cesspool. It's like hard to even use it like superficially, where I felt like it used to be able to, like, if I'm not be tweeting, but just like see what news, what's happening, but like it's just but part of it, and I'll admit, right, that like when things like this happen, like I purposely avoid news around it, because with the way the social media cesspool works, right, there are you are not just allowed to, but encouraged to be your worst self, because the worst self stuff gets amplified by people engaging with it, and by the algorithm, which promotes outrage and whatever. And so, and I know very progressive, very left Jews who, when these things happen, see online people like who are, I don't know who they actually are, but they are, they're online leftist and leftist identified people, basically, justifying things like well, people are burning in Gaza, people this, and what bums me out so much about that is that if we're going to descend, because to be clear, I think what Israel is doing in Gaza right now is a genocide. It is horrific. And I believe those things, and I believe those things are horrific because I believe in the sanctity of human life. And I mean that to say that I don't celebrate murder. To just don't. And descending into like so if that's fine, like if you just follow that logic, we're all going to be shooting each other all the time.
In an academic sense, you and I very much disagree on what's going on in Gaza, and that does need to kind of be parked for a moment, because what has happened here, what's happening in Gaza, what's happening in Israel, has very little to do with elderly Jews in Boulder, Colorado. There's very little they can do, and they are allowed to have their outrage. They are allowed to, and I obviously don't know these people at all. I don't know what their family situations are, whether they have families that still live over there and that they communicate with, and all of that. But we are losing a fundamental part of our society if we're going to disagree so vehemently that we feel justified in murdering non-military combatants, people who are not posing a threat to one side or the other. And I feel like I'm not right now being angry enough about this, because I am worried enough about this that this is not the last thing that we're going to see on this. And, our friend Karen Maratz, what would she call me? Brianist instead of Zionist or something like that. And that's funny. I can't remember exactly what she said. Whatever she said was funny. And yes, I do feel like I have more of a connection here.
It was Zion McDaniel.
Zion McDaniel. Yeah, because I've said before, my grandfather was an Austrian Jew who came here in 1938, which is right around the time that you wanted to do that, and he lost brothers and sisters and cousins and uncles and everything there. So I don't want to overplay. I was not raised Jewish, but I don't want to overplay it, but I also don't want to underplay it that this is something that does have a pretty strong connection to my family. But the two people that were engaged to be engaged, who got shot down murdered in D.C., this was not their deal. I'm sure that they disagreed with the people that killed them, both in the killing them and in what's going on in Gaza. Same thing here. We cannot be so emboldened as to think that every issue is worth killing over. The gentleman here, and you can talk about his status, you can talk about all that stuff. He was Egyptian.
Yeah.
This wasn't even really his deal. He's allowed to have his opinions as well. But if all of a sudden we are so angry and we are fostering, this is where you get to X, because I don't disagree with you on this either, where we're fostering such hatred that people who probably are predisposed to violence kind of feel like their fuse can be lit by something like this. We have to, as a society, we got to back up. And I want to connect this. I apologize, I'm jumping around on here because something happened in Minneapolis this week where ICE was in town, and they were depending on how much you believe the official story, they were here conducting a drug-related raid and all that, and the community kind of came out and I'll let Javier talk about the who's and the what's. But when I heard about that, my first thought wasn't something political, or that people were going to be disappeared, which I know is kind of a word that a lot of people use. My first thought was, I'm worried about the people that came there to kind of stand up for their community, that someone there was going to get hurt, that either from law enforcement, like somebody who comes there, like, Umbrella Man has popped up again in local papers. If someone is there to cause trouble.
Umbrella Man has popped up again?
No, well, they were talking about, it came up like who was he and all that stuff.
They never found the guy.
They never found him. But anyway, if someone like that, someone who comes to an initially peaceful situation and incites something, that puts everyone else who goes there in danger. That was my first thought. I want you to kind of talk a little bit about what you saw of it kind of from your angle.
I mean, so yesterday there was news first I saw on social media, like there was the images of there was this very militarized presence on Lake Street. There was some confusion and some conflicting reports, including the mayor said it was not an immigration enforcement, and there were other people there was this confusion about whether it was ICE or not, and saying no, it wasn't ICE, it was the Department of Homeland Security, law enforcement, which was
MPD participating in it,
right? And so part of the thing, so ICE was definitely involved. That we now know that for certain. What is happening in the federal government right now, this is the sort of the context in which I view it. What's happening in the federal government right now is that they are moving people, they are moving law enforcement out of other agencies, so out of the FBI, literally people just who are investigating all kinds of crimes like murders and things. They're moving them to immigration enforcement. In fact, in the FBI, they are offering incentives to people to say that they can, if they move over to immigration enforcement, they can pick where their home base will be, because the FBI operates like the Army, where you get you get sent to where you get sent, and you don't have any say, and you can with seniority and time, you can end up in the your home state, but you're never guaranteed that. And so they're offering, Kash Patel is offering FBI agents who are willing to move over to immigration that like they can work out of wherever home base they want. That he's going to have quite an HR problem on his hands when like everyone starts moving around. Like there's a reason why they don't do those. There's a reason in the Army and the reason in the FBI they don't let just everyone just pick because.
And in fact, the FBI specifically makes a family member of mine was thinking about moving to an FBI position, and they affirmatively make you move.
Right. The background is that they are moving. They are nowhere near their goals of 1 million deportations a year. And so there are a few things that are happening right now. And if you follow these things closely, and most people do not, so I probably follow this more closely than most people because I've worked in immigration for a long time and it's an issue close to my heart. But so what is happening is they're moving lots of law enforcement, doing that. They are getting rid of the temporary protected status for Venezuelans and others, which the Supreme Court just allowed them to do. Why are they doing that? Because that makes people who actually have legal status and work authorization, overnight you become an undocumented person. Overnight, you become someone whose legal status is not authorized, and whose the work permit that you had is no longer valid. Folks sort of in the know think that what's going to happen is because those are also people who are if you have temporary protected status, you're registered with the government. They have addresses for everyone, so like that's where immigration enforcement is going to go. The thing about yesterday, when there was all this confusion about whether it was ICE or Homeland Security, whatever, is that in many ways that's a distinction without a difference, because Homeland Security is just all of its operations are moving over to immigration enforcement. From what I understand from advocates who were there and who know some of the folks involved, there was a judicial warrant that was being served. In Know Your Rights trainings, they always make a point of saying, like, if someone knocks on your door, you ask them for a warrant. If they don't have a warrant, you do not have to open your door. But if they have a warrant and it says Brian McDaniel, you have to respond. But what happens in ICE enforcement is that they take Brian and then they take everyone else in the house who is not on warrants, and they ask everyone what your papers are and what are your papers and blah blah blah. And so what happened yesterday was that while they're serving a warrant, what community was setting out to protect, and they did so successfully, was that there are a lot of other people in the restaurant in that area of town who could have been picked up and asked for their papers and whatever. And because people know their rights, like, they were holed up behind closed doors in various locations, and there were lawyers helping them, and so no one else got picked up. And I believe the person or persons who were on the judicial warrant, they were picked up. So it was a very confusing sort of general thing. This is what's terrifying to me about all of this, right? Is that the confusion ends up helping, like the chaos around these things. I think is, if it's not purposeful, I think it is purposeful. But even if it were not, what it will do is help create an atmosphere, like justification of like for more brutal enforcement. And this is just this is what was promised with mass deportation. This is what's going to get. Like the only study that I've ever seen that has looked at, and this was done in like 2010, I want to say, so it would be really outdated, especially the numbers. But the only study I've ever seen that tried to quantify what it would take to deport, at the time, 11 million people, I think the number's more like 13 million now, that it would take the budget of a larger budget than literally every law enforcement, federal law enforcement, like together. So yeah, it's they're trying to figure out how to up their numbers, because ironically they're actually deporting people at a lower rates than Obama and Biden. The reason for that is like, it sounds counterintuitive, but the reason for that is because within our laws and due process, their enforcement priorities was to focus on criminals, for people with criminal histories, and they were doing that very effectively. They were also catching a lot of other people who were not in the process, because ICE they're cowboys at ICE. But right now, that the way they're doing it and all the legal roadblocks that they've been facing is because we are a nation of laws. And so when we say the immigration system is broken, and like when that bill that had bipartisan support and was going to pass until Trump told folks not to vote for it last year, which was a very, very draconian bill, like very focused on law enforcement. It was going to increase the number of judges and all this, because that's what needs to happen. You need to, like, we either become a nation with concentration camps, or we have to have more judges, or we have to reform the laws to figure out like who gets to, like, who is contributed to society gets to stay and who does not, and do all those things. Like, that's how you would fix the problem. But that's not kind of where we're at. And so where we're at is we're going to be seeing, I think, a lot more situations like we did last night. I am deeply concerned for, like, one, I think yesterday there like some good things happened. People who were not target of the warrant were not taken by ICE. The scuffle that happened with law enforcement, like, really worries me, because this administration, I think, is going to use those. I mean, they arrested a judge in Wisconsin for obstructing. I think they will be prosecuting people, like, very aggressively. So yeah, it's just a messed up situation.
Well, let's there's gonna be. I agree with you. There's gonna be more of these, not just here, but all over the place, and there has to be a balance between the rule of law and keeping the community safe, and what's going on. And because, like, where am I wrong or am I not wrong that it's being reported that what happened in Minneapolis yesterday was drug related? There was some law enforcement thing. They said, I don't know, was it drug trafficking? I don't know. Like, I thought I had just heard that it was not an immigration issue, that they were there for. It was a drugs issue, because ICE does customs. They do, so they have something to do with that. That's here's the thing about ICE is, I've made this joke many times. It's a scary joke about Minneapolis Police Department. Like, how do you know they're lying? Their lips are moving. And with ICE, and federal agencies, it is just so opaque. And I don't, like, the mayor of Minneapolis was making assertions yesterday that I think turned out not to be true. I don't think because he set out to lie, honestly. I think because the law enforcement agencies were not clear with him. And that's how ICE operates. I think that while they had whatever the warrant is for, there is no doubt, and we know they do this. They would, like, the reason they also had ICE there was because they were going to pick up everyone else and ask everyone else for papers, like on Lake Street or or else, and so yeah. So I don't know what the crime was, the underlying crime was, but no, I was just going to say, like, jumping around back to national, international. Because I do want to talk about this badass, like, freaking Ukraine, man. Yeah. So we have on here, I think I wrote down Ukraine's kick-ass drone attack. I mean, and not to be flip about this, but to a certain extent, I want to watch the movie that shows what happened, because there were 117 drones, that unmanned drones, which makes it a drone, that went off and
that were sent in Russian
and not just like near the border, up by like the Finnish border.
But they were
and
sent
other
on
places.
Russian trucks.
Yeah. Oh, really?
That was the thing, is that it was trucks that were going into Russia, so they were authorized to go in. They had these false roofs or something, and that's how they and then it was very I mean the thing about like why I like you said, I'm not trying to be glib about it, but this is, we've seen the prospect since Trump was elected of I've just been fearing that, because Trump is so on Putin's side on this, that they were just going to steamroll Ukraine, and this feels like back reminiscent to the early days of the war when the Ukrainians were unexpectedly strong against Russia,
Good at war.
It was like, whoa.
Because remember early on, that old Ukrainian women were giving sunflowers to Russians, not as we love you anyway, let's peace, but no, so that when the Russians would die, sunflowers would grow.
Yeah, no, exactly.
That's tough as shit.
Yeah, no, and So yeah, that 117 drones, and what they did, they destroyed a third of their fleet of airplanes that was being used to bomb Ukrainian civilians. So I mean, the operation itself, to me, honestly, it feels like the Empire Strikes Back, like a moment in a movie when oh, thank God, Jesus, where the underdogs are finally coming back.
But a scary truth though is that there's absolutely nothing that would prevent this from happening to us too.
When the time came,
from
encrypted activation
China,
signals were sent remotely.
Pick your
The roofs of the
rival, the United
containers slid
States.
open and the drones lifted off. Some vertically, others using ramps.
What is that video you're showing us,
Gabe?
Yeah, this is the actual operator. This
Because the launch
is a
sites were positioned
reconstruction
just a
of the
few kilometers
operation.
away, 2 miles from their
So
target.
this
So if you're not watching on YouTube, I would encourage you to go to YouTube because it's a video recreation, and it shows the trucks had these false tops, and then the drones sort of are released,
fuel depots and radar
and
installations.
they destroyed all of these bombers. That
Many of the drones carried high explosive or shape-charged warheads,
and it's the first
designed to
thing
pierce
that has
aircraft
happened
fuselages
that
or ignite fuel
has
stores.
given
Some exploded on
Ukraine
impact, while
some
others used delayed
leverage
fuses
in
to cause maximum
negotiations.
damage.
Ooh, I
after
didn't know they were
reaching targets.
kamikaze drones
The operation
too.
was more than just a tactical
they're
win.
just
It highlighted the
They
growing
said $7
sophistication
billion
of drone warfare
of
and
losses.
Ukraine's ability to strike deep inside
Now,
Russian
this isn't what
territory.
your son was trying
In
to do
total,
earlier today.
100
Well, that's what I'm trying to train him to
drones
do,
were
'cause it
launched
is the
in a
future
highly
that's coming.
coordinated attack
I
at
mean,
least 5 major
what
air
I would be
bases.
thinking if I were
Among
Putin
the
is
targets were strategic bombers,
if they have the
including
ability to
aircraft
do
Russia no
that
longer manufactures,
targeted,
making their loss even more significant.
wouldn't you be just personally?
These are the
scared
area where
for
Ukraine
yourself?
struck 34% of
Like,
Russia's
that's-
strategic bomber
That's
fleet.
pretty damn
Ukraine
good
targeted
targeting.
strategic nuclear bombers at the Belaya Air Base in Siberia.
Air bases, like
Other
you
key
said,
military
up in
installations
Siberia,
also came under attack, including the Ivanovo Air Base
over near the
northeast of
Finnish
Moscow,
border, one of
and the
them.
Dyagilevo Air Base south of the
That's a
capital.
kind of precision.
A massive explosion rocked
like,
the Arctic city of Severomorsk.
I can't.
Home
And,
to
and,
Russia's
and Putin
largest fleet of
is
nuclear submarines.
famously paranoid.
Ukraine
and,
also struck
kind
the
of,
Alenia Guba naval base in
and
the Murmansk
solitary.
region.
Because
Reaching
he
as
doesn't
far as
trust
Siberia,
anyone.
the
So I
operation
wonder if he's
inflicted
living in
serious damage,
living in
reportedly
bunkers.
destroying or disabling a
I
significant
personally would be
portion
living in a
of
bunker if I
Russia's
saw
strategic
that.
bomber
Be like,
fleet.
okay, all right.
The
well,
strike marked a turning point.
Maybe
not only
this
in the
invasion
conflict
thing
itself,
wasn't so.
but in the
At least we
evolution of
haven't had
drone
any
warfare
drone
on the
incursions
modern
here or
battlefield.
anything.
Among the high priority
Didn't we
targets
have
were
those,
the
those
Two-95
balloons or something like that?
Two strategic
No,
that's right.
remember
No,
we
they
had
had
those
hundreds
aircraft.
of-
Yeah, all the
Didn't we
time.
have those?
Thousands of them.
Do we have those
Cruise missiles
car-sized?
deep into
Yeah,
Ukrainian
they were like
territory.
the size of small
The
cars.
A-50 airborne
Yes,
early
yeah.
warning
over our
and control
sensitive
aircraft,
military
vital for
facilities
coordinating
that
Russian
they
air
could not
operations
somehow
and
detect
detecting
where they
incoming
went or
threats
came to and
were
from.
also targeted.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
yeah,
According to
so,
Ukrainian
I mean,
sources,
good
the
for
impact of
Ukraine.
the strike was
Bad
substantial.
for
More than 40
letting everybody know
aircraft
that this
were
works really,
reportedly
really
hit.
well. But
While
one thing,
some were-
okay, you mentioned Putin. You know, Putin was the former head of the KGB, and this is something I'm just throwing this out there because and I keep coming back to it. I am so sad and afraid for American Jews or Jews in other countries about what is on the cusp of happening here. And so we use the word Gestapo a lot. Sometimes Walz even pronounces it correctly, but we use it a lot. But what makes the Gestapo different than the KGB was that the Gestapo was killing Jews. Well, we have people that are killing Jews now. I am just throwing it out there. I would really like it if people, if they want to talk about the fascist nature of this and that. You got the KGB. You want to tie Trump to Russia? Use the KGB. Using the Hitler stuff, using the Jewish stuff, I think is a lot less tasteful when we have people actively targeting Jews in the United States of America and other places. And I'm throwing that out there as a friendly suggestion that I would definitely appreciate.
And I'm going to disagree with you, because I think we are living in times where when someone who is in has the amount of power that, say, Elon Musk has had, and who knows where he's at now, but thinks that the way to troll people is to do Nazi salutes.
Cory Booker did the same damn thing.
Is Cory Booker meeting with Nazis? Because Trump has welcomed them. Has Cory Booker called white supremacists very fine people? White supremacists who, by the way, were chanting Jews will not replace us. We are living in a moment where Kristi Noem going to El Salvador and taking pictures, a literal war crime. It's a war crime to use prisoners for propaganda. But everything is messed up, and yes, absolutely, the KGB is actually 100% collaborating with the far right across the world. But you can tell me
that Cory Booker has never supported somebody who's never met with anyone who's pro Hamas. We can do this all day. Just give me some.
Just talking about Nazis.
The defining character of a Nazi is killing Jews, and Jews are being killed. And it is not tied to Elon Musk. It is not tied to Donald Trump. It is not tied to Tim Walz. You and I aren't going to agree on this. That's fine. Yeah. That's the podcast. Yeah. Drone attack on Javier's house later today. But I think
save it for my birthday.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on to okay. So I talked about Walz. I talked about how we're not done with the budget here in the state of Minnesota. We go into a budget shutdown in about 3 weeks or so. On June 30th, the government of Minnesota is going to be shut down. From all things we can see, there were budget negotiations going on this past weekend, and Tim Walz is in South Carolina. Tim Walz is in California, talking about how Democrats just need to be meaner, and that is such a trivial thing compared to what his actual job should be right now, which is. And I talked with him. Not last Friday, the Friday before. We were on KSTP at the same time. We were talking afterwards. He's involved in these meetings, but.
In what meetings?
In meetings with leaders of the House and Senate, Republican and Democrat. But then I was told by a reporter that this weekend it was just his staff. Well, we're in overtime, and right now he is not doing his job, and he needs to be the adult in the room because they're not getting closer to a deal, and this is going to lead to a shutdown of state government, and just telling people to be meaner that's campaign bullshit. And
let's separate the two things. I'm talking about I think it was when you and I were not on. Maybe it was you and Amy that because they Eric I think asked about Tim at the time he was down in Iowa and said is that helping or hurting Democrats, and I said, look, I think that what Tim Walz is doing nationally is a good thing for Democrats. I think the fact that Republicans don't like what he's saying when he's out there as a Democrat in stump speech, just means he's doing his job. It's literally like I wouldn't expect Republicans to like it.
No, we're not the audience for that. I get that.
But the distinction I drew on Almanac and that I continue to draw is that doing that while we have kind of a mess in Minnesota is not doing Minnesota Democrats any favors. I think that's the distinction there, and I would hope that this means that they are just exceptionally optimistic about their ability to get a deal. Because the worst thing that could happen for Tim Walz's presidential ambitions would be for Minnesota to descend into chaos, or for Tim Walz to lose his reelection race. I think how he does depends entirely on who you all put up.
Well, because one of the things I heard today was that there is a renewed push to try to get the budget done before June 10th, because then more layoff notices.
Yeah, I had heard there was supposed to be there was a possibility of a special session today, so that did not happen.
One of the things that take away any Republican bias that I have left in my body. One of the things that I am so offended by, just as a former staffer, is how many artificial deadlines they have set for themselves, which they haven't met. So why do it? To whose benefit is it to say, oh, last Monday, oh, last Wednesday, oh, we'll do it by today. Now they're saying by Saturday. They're not going to get it done by Saturday either. I hope they do. I don't think they are. I don't know to whose benefit it is to bumble through this the way they are. I don't think it provides anybody with any kind of comfort that their government is being that the rudder has steady hands on it. State workers are now being called back for 50% time, just in time to get their layoff notices. So that's a good look. Walz is not doing himself any favors with the public employee unions. You have Karine Jean-Pierre saying she's no longer a Democrat. She's going to classify as an independent now. So I think that the
Karine Jean-Pierre said that.
Yeah, I know. I saw that on my way in, and I find that, and you see that with Republicans too. I'm not trying to say that the Republican brand is great. It is not. It is probably as low as it's been in a really long time as well. But I think that if the Republicans and the Democrats think right now, the leaders of these parties and the elected officials, if they think that they are inspiring people to follow them, they're not. It's just whose lies give somebody more comfort, and it's not good. It's not good. In Minneapolis, just getting back to Minneapolis very quickly, city council, we have two city council people that did not receive the endorsements. Incumbents that did not receive their party endorsement. And the question is going to be now, is that just the oddities of local politics, or is it indicative that messages are being sent to the city council that what they're doing, what they're talking about, what they're acting upon is not resonating with their voters? We're going to have to wait and see. This is just the beginning of all of this. But any thoughts on that?
I mean, Minneapolis, actually, I have thoughts on Minneapolis. I'll do it in my spank.
Okay. All right. Well, let's and then I'm just going to mention this. It was a very scary time in Minneapolis. Again, we're outside of Mariucci Arena, which, for those who don't know, it's on the campus of the University of Minnesota. That there was the Wayzata High School graduation. There were shots fired and people hit outside of that, and then there were 6 people shot on Boom Island as well. It's always dangerous. It's always scary. It's just feeling more dangerous and scarier right now, and it's an effed up proposition.
We have no new patrons to thank.
I even had somebody text me talking.
They lied.
Well, I don't.
Oh,
wanna say
talking about wanting to do it.
well that they were going to up their subscription. I'm sure that is coming soon.
All right. Well,
Because they
so
are currently a subscriber, so I will not dickify them.
Yeah,
but
no. We won't dickify them, and especially, well, that's an automatic thing. Like, it's an automatic monthly charge.
yeah,
They don't get a choice in the matter there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's binary.
So patreon.com/wrongaboutEverything podcast. We deeply appreciate those of you who are and have been our supporters, and would ask those of you who are listeners who can afford it, who can afford to throw a few bucks a month in our direction. We would greatly appreciate it, so we can pay our production costs. We do not pay ourselves. This podcast has been a labor of
a labor of like.
for 11 years.
Yeah. You notice that Javier talked about his favorite thing to do, and it wasn't this.
So patreon.com/wrongaboutEverything podcast, because if you are listening, especially, I know a good number of you are longtime listeners, and I know a lot of you are lobbyists because you tell me you listen. And I know I know some white hat lobbyists who are not making a lot of money, and then I know others who are making a lot of money. Don't look away. Yeah. Anyway,
I make the medium bucks.
Medium my ass. If you can afford it and cannot and are not, and you're coasting, you're kind of being a dick. So don't be a dick. And we thank all the not dicks. Mm-hmm. And I really appreciate it when people come up to me and say, like, hey, I'm a listener to a podcast and I'm not a dick. That is awesome. I also really appreciate it when people say, I listen to the podcast and I can't, and like, I have 4 kids. I'm so sorry. I'm not and I always say, no, it doesn't count. You are not in the category, because however you assess it, but if you're being a dick.
Well, and one thing, Javier mentioned his birthday. Like, one thing is I had a family member who made a Patreon contribution in the name of somebody else.
Yeah, I remember that.
And you can do that.
Yes, yeah. So, hey, we got a month of my birthday. So throw some money. Don't be a dick. Wish me a happy birthday in July. You got any
plugs?
I got nothing to plug.
Yeah, I got Amy and I are on the BS show every Tuesday, and Amy is on a million things, and one of them is the Al Travis show, and I'm on that periodically as well.
The what show?
The Al Travis show.
Who's that?
It's Al Travis.
Is it a podcast?
It's like this. It's it's a podcast. I think I shouldn't say that. It's on the radio in Greater Minnesota, but it's kind of like the Bob Sansbury show, where some people listen to it as a podcast, but it is on rural stations or Greater Minnesota stations. So.
And it's called what?
The Al Travis Show.
And who's Al Travis?
It's about as thorough as it gets, man.
He's the host of the show.
What did you say, Gabe?
I said that's about as thorough as it gets, man. I mean, his name,
but I know
the social security number.
But don't you think it's a little suspicious that I asked Brian, well, who's Al Travis, and he says the guy with the show, and I say, what's the show? And it's the Al Travis show.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
You have no idea.
Well, what am I supposed to say?
You have no idea who this person is?
I know who he is. It's Al Travis. He's a cool dude.
Who the hell's Al Travis?
Al Travis is the brother of one of my clients, which I didn't even know. He's got a large footprint in Minnesota, just evidently not in.
That does not sound like evidence of a large footprint.
Not in your part of St. Paul.
Do you know, Gabe? Do you know who Al Travis is?
No.
Have you heard of that show?
No, I have not.
Oh, well, I'm sure we got you more listeners now with this little fight.
Yeah. Well,
that seems
Gabe,
very
have you ever gone
suspicious.
to the Moth?
Apparently,
there's not a real moth there.
No, I didn't.
That exists on National Public Radio. You can listen. It's on the schedule. We could look it up. This just sounds suspicious. Are you sure you're not on some Nazi show?
Is this an official challenge of Al Travis to come on the Moth?
Booker Story Hour? No.
No.
All right.
Yeah.
Spanks and thanks.
All right. Where did I go? So my my spank, or it is my spank. Minneapolis for the Many, which is an organization that that is sort of a pack for the progressive left put out a poll this last week that shows that 51% of Minneapolis voters have an unfavorable opinion of Mayor Fry. 30% favorable, 19% not sure. These numbers are, worse than a poll from I think it was 2 years ago, maybe, and it's consistent with it. Like, and my spank is, Minneapolis progressive voters, get your shit together. Like, I can't understand how, so like, Emily Koski was in the race. She dropped out of the race. Dwayne Davis is in the race. I'd encourage people to learn about Dwayne Davis. He seems like a good and solid candidate. He was a congressional aide. But there's this sense, like when I talk to progressive Minneapolis, there's this sense like, oh, I don't know, we can beat Jacob Fry. 51% unfavorable. Like, that's not just underwater. That's like, he's unpopular. He's unpopular. So you're not crazy, people. If you think you're living in a city with a not great mayor, like most of your neighbors agree. So get your shit together and read up on Canada, meet people and support a candidate. There's Omar Fatah, Senator Omar Fatah is running, like Dwayne Davis. Just pick someone and like move on.
Or because it's Minneapolis, you can pick several people for some reason.
Ranked choice voting. Yeah. And then my that was my spank, and my thank is no, that's not it. Where did I go?
Elon Musk.
Oh yeah, that's it. Oh my God, yes, that's what I was saying. Thank you, Gabe. Gabe's being very useful today. Yeah.
Drone videos and your spanks.
So I'm not thanking him because I agree with him that the big beautiful bill is a disaster. But like Elon Musk, for some reason, is now. Like now he's left the administration. Now he went on a rampage overnight, probably ketamine fueled, but it was a little ketamine between friends. Except, I mean, we should have talked about this, except he can't pee anymore apparently because that's a side effect.
Ketamine's all of a sudden like a big deal. Like if you watch any of those like Mormon wives shows, the ketamine therapy, they're not allowed to have a Coke. And they're not allowed to drink alcohol, but they do ketamine therapy, and it's
Mormon wives are doing ketamine. That does not seem wise.
It doesn't seem wise or consistent with their values, but it is a thing.
Well, I mean, I suppose if you have a prescription, you can. But
can they take PCP?
I don't know.
Yeah, have you ever been in a K-hole, Gabe? It's not.
It's like the only drug I haven't done. So they're up on me.
Yeah, no, I'll just say. In the 90s, I might have at one point fallen into a K-hole. It is, don't do that.
Wow.
I will never do that again.
Learning stuff.
Because it was a gay party drug. I mean, it still is, but and in very small doses and microdosing, it's used to fight depression, and that's what Elon says he's been doing. But then there was a big New York Times expose. I'm sure you probably all heard of it. But anyway, so whether ketamine fueled or not, he is now like he's posting like Kill Bill memes and just fully out, and then fully out against the horrible bill that will kick millions of people off of healthcare, and is going to hand billions of dollars to already rich people in tax breaks. It's a freaking disaster. And now Elon is suddenly like on the other side, and it's been interesting to see. Like they were interviewing members of Congress, and Speaker Johnson was like, I mean, I talked to him like 20 minutes about this yesterday, and I'm sure he's just confused. Everyone's like very like so. Now, what happens when you have two daddies? Who do you listen to? Like, so it's going to be quite like, because he's actually pushing people, telling people to call their members of Congress and all this, and it's already a very fragile coalition around that bill. So whatever your reason, you know what? Do as many bumps of ketamine as you want, Elon. I won't judge. Just keep tweeting about the big, beautiful bill.
All right. So my spank is going to be to the Morrison County Republican Party. They have issued a proclamation that says here, the Morrison County Republican Party fully and unequivocally condemns the actions and behavior of Representative Ron Krisha for betraying the values of Republicans in our country, district, and state. So why I'm spanking them is not because they don't have the right to condemn their elected official. I frankly think more people need to condemn their elected officials and demand that they do a better job of actually representing the electorate. But in their reasonings for why they're condemning Ron Krisha, and Ron Krisha has been a long-time Republican state representative. He's the chair of or the co-chair of the Education Finance Committee. Somebody I've worked with a ton, though not as much in recent years. But in it, they go back. They're pulling bills from 2021, taking, we all know there's a problem with omnibus bills. Omnibus bills, and if you don't know what an omnibus bill is, an omnibus bill would be something like in the Omnibus Health and Human Services bill. There will not just be one thing you vote on. That is something you're supposed to do. But there will be hundreds and hundreds of things you vote on. And the reason that you do that is because there are tough choices that need to be made. And a lot of these elected officials don't want to make tough choices. They want to vote for the good things and they don't want to vote against the bad things. You put it in an omnibus bill, and what it is that if you're going to get the good things, you got to vote for the bad things too. And obviously each party has a different definition of what's good and bad. But this is the way it works on the federal level. It's why it works on the state level. I think that it has been abused, but that is a different issue for a different day. But they are going back as far as 2021, taking omnibus bills apart and finding one thing here, one thing there that Ron Krisha in no way, shape, or form would say that he endorses or supports, yet it was part of the compromise that the two parties and the two bodies and the governor at the time would have put into the omnibus bill. So if you think that Ron Krisha is not fighting for you, Morrison County, you're wrong. But it is your right to condemn it. But you should know a little bit more about the process, and you're going to have an opportunity to pick another representative if you'd like, and that is something I do support you doing if those are your druthers. But you are spanked for not understanding the process or the purpose of omnibus bills. So my thank was, and we talked about this, the Cory Booker Nazi salute. It's my thank only because Cory Booker, and I don't know if Gabe is going to have it up there or not, but Cory Booker does a salute that you cannot say is different than what Daddy Elon did. It is, I've never seen anyone salute that way before, and now I've seen two people do it where they kind of wind up and then stick out the one hand. With everything that's going on, they should know not to do this. I don't think for a second that Cory Booker is a Nazi, but I also think it's pretty outrageous that every single person that gets caught with their hand in the air like that, someone takes a snapshot, calls them a Nazi. We talked about this earlier. I'm not going to belabor it. I find that kind of rhetoric is distasteful unless you are killing Jews. So with that, I've said my piece on it. All right.
Elon should be less of a Nazi.
Well, with that, yes. I am GOP strategist, and
yes,
I was trying to think of something funny. I'm GOP strategist and Twin City Sugar, Brian McDaniel.
The best advertisement for your upcoming show. I was trying to think of something funny. I almost said Puerto Rican strategist. I am Democratic strategist and the Puerto Rican heat, Javier Murillo.
And we are
wrong about everything. Take us away, Gabe.